Hello there and welcome back to Utility Sports. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the discussion of Justin Fields versus Zach Wilson. This has been ongoing for months, and obviously both present very, very interesting cases on who QB2 could be. I think Trey Lance is also in this discussion, but I just want to talk about these two players specifically. I think by the NFL draft, we could see Trey Lance possibly be the second quarterback taken, but I don't see it entirely likely. I do think it comes down to Zach Wilson and Justin Fields and the comfortability of teams picking at the top to take one of these guys as that QB2. So let's go ahead and read the stats. Zach Wilson played 12 games, Fields played 8. The yards comparison goes Zach Wilson with 3,692, Fields with 2,100. Wilson completed 73.5% of his passes. Fields completed 70. Wilson had 33 touchdowns. Fields had 22. Wilson had 3 picks. Fields had 6. And the other one that's kind of interesting to me is the yards per attempt. Wilson had 11.0. Fields had 9.3. So now that we kind of have the stats in front of us, obviously Wilson played 4 more games because of the whole Big Ten issue. Ohio State couldn't really get going right away to start the season. This is very interesting because Zach Wilson and Fields Fields isn't super agile within the pocket, but he's a very, very good runner in terms of, once he gets moving and he actually is able to take off, he's a dangerous open field runner. Not necessarily, navigating the pocket, avoiding sacks that way. I think Zach Wilson is better in that regard. But also, Zach Wilson, I do believe, probably actually has a better arm. I think I was fooled a little bit by Fields' arm. There were some wild plays that he had, but in terms of actual velocity on the ball, I think that does go to Fields. So overall, I do think that Zach Wilson has the slight edge in terms of what we saw on tape. Something else that we do need to bring up is Justin Fields and his inability to advance past the first progression. Obviously, he looks down his target, and basically, if it's not there, he takes off. I think that was kind of a common problem. I mean, it worked for Ohio State. It really did. They had a lot of talent around Justin Fields, but obviously, I just don't think that's necessarily sustainable at this point. Going to the NFL level, you got to be able to make multiple progressions. And I'm not saying that Zach Wilson's super great at that either, but I do believe that Wilson has the edge on that. I think some quarterbacks, at the college level can get away with, making a quick read and then taking off, or, ultimately sometimes they unnecessarily extend plays outside the pocket. So just kind of looking at that as a whole, I do believe Zach Wilson is a better prospect. Just after going through some of the film, Justin Fields had a phenomenal 2019 season. Zach Wilson had a great 2020 season. And now you have to kind of shift through it and kind of, make your own judgment on who you think the better quarterback prospect is. I do think it is Zach Wilson just by looking at his whole body of work. But something that we need to consider is with these two, the strength of schedule. I mean, BYU did not play a ton of great teams this year. Teams like San Diego State, Navy, that was kind of what they looked like. Ohio State obviously had to play some very, very tough teams this year, including Alabama, Clemson. They also had to play through some of the tougher Big Ten schedule that they had. Like Indiana was a very, very good team this year. They had Northwestern as well, who was a very good team as a whole. So just looking at that, you do have to keep that in consideration. Something I do want to give to Fields, though, I mean, he is extremely tough. We saw him get beat up this year, sustain a couple of injuries. He fought through it, and he played so well against Clemson. It was insane. It was truly incredible to actually watch him in that game. Absolutely dominated that football game. He stole the headlines over Trevor Lawrence during that, but I think we do need to give a lot of credit to Justin Fields. I'm just worried about him at the next level and just kind of his play style in terms of staring down his read. And then, his first instinct a lot of times is to take off. I think there's a lot of people that actually like Justin Fields. And there was a conversation at one point in the season saying Justin Fields is QB1. I don't buy into that. I still don't. I don't know if there's a lot of people that still buy into that. I'm kind of interested to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you do believe Justin Fields is still a QB1 in this entire NFL draft, so that's something that we do need to kind of look at as a whole. Is we take a look at the stats, and for the eye test for me, I do think Zach Wilson was better on tape as a whole. Justin Fields, though, he is a nice prospect. He's a guy that I think definitely needs some infrastructure around him. Say he goes to the Jets, I just don't think that that works out very well if you're Justin Fields. And obviously, there has been quite a bit of dysfunction with that Jets organization over the last couple of years. I mean, basically over the last 10 seasons. In terms of receivers, they are not set up very well. I think Zach Wilson steps into that situation and definitely handles a worse team better, if that makes sense. I think that Zach Wilson going to New York would be a better situation than Fields to New York. But I do think that the Jets will take a quarterback at 2. I think Sam Darnold's on his way out. But just kind of looking at these two as a whole, I think that's the conversation we have to have with ourselves is who is that QB2? Because that could be very pivotal in how the rest of the top 10 plays out, right? Because we have a couple of teams that could consider quarterback. We have the Jets, we have the Falcons, we have the Panthers, Lions. There's a couple of teams in this mix where you're thinking, man, they definitely could look at the quarterback position. We could see possibly San Fran decide to jump up from their 12 spot, get into that top 10, and potentially take one of these two. It's going to take quite a bit, though, in order to make that leap from 12 to where you can get one of these guys. For me, ultimately, I think it would take a Justin Fields tumble in order for that kind of situation to play out. But I do think that Zach Wilson is the QB2. I've been up and down on it all season long. I mean, Justin Fields, don't get me wrong, he's a fun prospect. He was really fun to watch this season. Obviously, had a lot of issues. He's a tough guy. I think he could be a pretty good leader on a team, but I think Zach Wilson has really solidified himself as that quarterback 2 in this class. Once again, I think Trey Lance has somewhat of a conversation in it, but it's really hard just considering that he was a full opt-out basically this year. It wasn't a voluntary opt-out. It was the NDSU season was basically an entire opt-out. They did play one game. Trey Lance did not play well in that game at all, despite that. I mean, the main reason for them being motivated to get that game done was we got to show the NFL that this is a good showcase game. He can have a really good game, show them that, he's been working on stuff in that past off season. But I don't think he did himself any favors playing super poorly in that game. But, it is what it is. And I guess we'll see a little more with pro days and stuff like that. That will give us a better idea. I'm not one of those big believers that, a pro day will really determine the stock of a quarterback. I think a lot more goes into it. We do have to consider the things that are said off camera, a lot of the one-on-one meetings that they get to have with these players. These organizations find out a lot, I believe, in those meetings with those players, whether it's quarterback, any position, it doesn't matter. Whatever kind of prospect you want to look at, I do think that they can gather a lot of information about their personality. Sure, obviously they can fake a lot of things in those meetings, but I think you can find out true X's and O's knowledge in that. I think you can find leadership qualities. They also are going to have some time to do some homework around, the players that were around, the coaches that were around these guys during the whole college football season, and obviously your teammates and coaches will probably vouch for you, but I think there's sometimes it's brutally honest, and it could be from an anonymous source. But I think that going into this NFL draft, I'm rather certain that Zach Wilson will be the second quarterback taken. And then it comes to the discussion of Justin Fields or Trey Lance. I'm not entirely sure where people kind of sit on that. For me personally, I am a little higher on Fields as a whole, but I do think Trey Lance has an opportunity to surpass him and become that QB3. But for me right now, as it stands, Justin Fields is that QB3 at the moment. So let me know in the comment section below, who do you think the QB2 is in this NFL draft? I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Or you could even surprise me and put a guy like Lance or Mac Jones, possibly, if you feel strongly about those other two prospects. So let me know in the comment section below, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.